Alright, this is the Move Shoot Move 3-axis Digiscoping phone adapter. And basically, it's an adapter that holds your cell phone up to the eyepiece of a telescope or binocular or spotting scope, anything like that. And there's 3 axes, and you can move your phone back and forth to perfectly position your phone's camera at the exit pupil of the eyepiece. And they have a nice little graph here that says, okay, it holds phones between 2.4 and 3.8 wide, so you can put your phone up and say, yeah, it fits that phone. And it has a picture. It says, okay, you know, it goes minimum of 0.87 inches. And that actually looks a lot smaller than 0.87 inches diameter, so I don't think this is necessarily to scale. It says maximum is 2.3 inches. That's definitely less than 2.3 inches. So, you know, this is, the circles are not to scale, but basically less than 1 inch up to more than 2 inch. And so it says it fits the 1.25 inch and 2 inch eyepieces. Now it does say tri-adapter plastic. I don't know if they have a metal version as well. So I was sent this to review for free. If you wanted to purchase it, it would cost you about $60 MSRP. They haven't paid me for this review, and my opinions remain my own. Alright, so in the box you get a kind of generic Bluetooth camera phone shutter so that you can take pictures without tapping your phone and making the whole telescope jiggle around. You also get the instruction manual here that basically tells you X, Y, Z axis knobs, how to hook things up, you know, how to position things, and so forth. Now, I have looked at a lot of cell phone adapters that connect cell phones to eyepieces, and pretty much all of the 2-axis ones aren't very good. So I'm using a 3-axis one myself right now, and basically I would never consider using anything less than a 3-axis one. So this guy here looks like it's going to be pretty good with that. We have, you know, obviously this guy here to move the camera that way. You have this guy here to move it up and down, and then this guy here moves it left and right. This guy here is kind of the grippy thing that'll hold on to eyepieces of different sizes, so you just have to set it to the right eyepiece and screw it in. So this whole thing is very light feeling. It is definitely, you know, plastic with some metal parts, but the plastic feels relatively strong for plastic. So, you know, I'd say it's a thick, pretty high quality plastic. The axes feel pretty solid. I think there's a little bit of flexing here, but I don't think that's really going to be a big issue at the weight of cell phones. Alright, so total weight here is 101 grams, or 3.5 ounces. Now, I've been using the SVBony 3-axis adapter, which functionally basically works about the same here, but it is made out of aluminum. And so weight-wise, we're talking significantly heavier. You know, it's 8.9 ounces or 253 grams. And rigidity feels much more rigid here. Now, you really only need enough rigidity so that the cell phone doesn't bounce around. So being made out of metal may not be a serious advantage, but just holding these guys in my hands, this all metal one feels heftier and, you know, kind of higher quality and stronger. You know, so like I said, the plastic here is pretty strong and rigid. There's, you know, a little bit of wiggly here, but I think, you know, it would lock in pretty well. This guy here has a screw for your phone, so, you know, you screw your phone in, and, you know, it takes a while to do that, but once you get screwed in, it's locked in. The SVBony one has the kind of spring clamp here, and that's always worked fine for my phone, but it is a little difference between the two. The axis movements here are going to be pretty similar between the two devices, you know, how they move around. Now, another difference is this guy here, MSRP is $40. This guy's MSRP is closer to $60. That might go down over time. Alright, so I screwed my phone in here. I have volume buttons near the middle of my phone, so I had to kind of put my phone up high. You can see the camera is already positioned pretty close to the middle there. I do have to, slide it over a little bit, and then I'll have to, once I put an eyepiece in, adjust that correctly. But it is holding that phone in, just fine. There's no problems there. It has kind of rubber grippy things, and I tightened in this thing here, so, I am not at all worried the phone's going to come out of there. I'm going to be trying this guy out with an eyepiece. Now, technically, this is a 1.25-inch eyepiece, but it's a lot bigger on this side because it's a zooming eyepiece. And so I'm going to have to clamp that to here. And this eyepiece, to give you an idea here, the outside diameter is about 47 millimeters, so that is just a little under 2 inches. So sort of about 1.87 inches there. Now, because this guy twists for the zoom feature, I am going to be mounting this up here kind of to this rubber eye cup, and that eye cup can come up and down, so I'm going to try to leave it in the down position. In the manual, they actually say it's better to mount it, close to the top, not to put it down near the middle, so that's okay. So that's clamped in there very well, no problems with the eyepiece coming out either. And I think it's easier to do this with the eyepiece and then put the whole unit into the telescope. Alright, so it came pretty close. I just have to adjust the XYZ axis here. And so I'm moving this guy until that eyepiece circle looks round, and then I'm moving this guy to kind of center it. And so just by twisting these two knobs, I can get a nice round circle there in this guy. Now, if I wanted to go out and use the 0.5 camera, that's a different camera, and so I'd have to adjust it for the 0.5 camera, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to use the 1.x camera. The circle might be too big. It might be a z-axis thing. I need to get it in the telescope before I can really effectively adjust the z-axis, but I can change it now, and you can see that's getting closer, so it's getting farther away from the eyepiece, and then I can twist it to get closer to the eyepiece. And I'm going to have to do that once it's on the telescope to kind of look at a focusing area and adjust it for that. But there's probably, I would say, maybe an inch of motion there in and out of that eyepiece. So you're basically trying to get that camera at a good point with respect to the eye relief on your eyepiece. Alright, so I just put the eyepiece into the telescope. And your camera is hanging off of the eyepiece, so you do need to make sure that's in there well. And right off the bat, I have a pretty good view, but it's off to one side. So I'm going to adjust left-right a little bit. And my up-down looks pretty good. I can change it, and you can see it gets worse. And it gets worse in the other direction, so I'm pretty sure I had that there. Focus is actually already pretty good. Let me get to something to focus on there. And I'm going to use the telescope's focusing a little bit here. So we can unfocus and focus the telescope. And the camera is also trying to focus on its own as well. I'm going to try the zoom. Alright, so there's zoom. So when I did the zoom, it went off a little bit, and I can adjust left, right, or up, down. And I can also do the z-axis adjustment to back out some. So right there, I think, is the best view. And it's just that simple to move in, out, up, down, left, right. And the 3-axis makes it much easier than any of the 2-axis ones I've used. So, functionality, it works great. You get a pretty good view through the eyepiece. Alright, so this guy held my phone well, it held onto the eyepiece really well, it was easy to move, left, right, up, down, in, out. So using a 3-axis adapter like this is a real joy after messing around with 2-axis adapters. You can really get the best possible image with your phone up on an eyepiece. So This guy was very easy to use. It's very lightweight, so it won't add too much hanging off the end of your telescope. And you know, it is all plastic construction with the exception of the metal screws, but it's holding together pretty well here. It feels like, you know, solid, rigid, very, you know, professional plastic. So it looks like a very good 3-axis camera to eyepiece adapter. So I've used the SVBony version of this that's all metal. I do not see a real advantage here. The spring clip is nice in that you can put your phone in and take your phone out a little faster than with this guy here. You have to screw in and out, but it's not too difficult to unscrew a few turns and screw in a few turns. There's a big weight difference here, and there's a price difference. You know, this guy's cheaper. So if you're looking for something lightweight because you have a telescope that's, you know, on a small stand and you're worried about extra weight at the end of it, and, you know, you're already putting a cell phone up there, this guy only does 3 or 4 ounces. You know, this guy's like 8 or 9 ounces. If you want pure strength, you know, this aluminum is stronger, and it might be a little more rigid, but I don't think the rigidity is really necessary because you put this guy up there and you're using the Bluetooth thing to take pictures with anyways. So it settles and it just holds it in place. So, you know, I don't know if the metal here is a serious advantage. Now, the price difference, obviously, you know, this guy is $20 cheaper. So if I, you know, there's no benefit to paying more for this one other than the slightly lighter weight. I think, you know, they're both pretty easy to use. They both do a really good job of holding your phone up to the eyepiece. Now, this guy can probably do a little bit bigger eyepiece than the SVBony one. You have to buy the SVBony one in a couple of different sizes, and the one I have here is not as large as that guy. It's close, but it's not quite the same. It's definitely smaller. And so if you have, you know, a 2-inch eyepiece, I think this guy here is going to work a lot better for you. So kind of, you know, maximum diameter here, we're looking at, you know, just right at 2 inches. Whereas this guy here, you know, he goes well out to like 2.5 or so. So this guy has a larger range than the SVBony ones. You have to buy this. There's 2 different versions. There's kind of a medium and a large version. I think this is kind of the smaller of the 2. And so this guy will grab those 2-inch eyepieces a little better than this guy here.